All right, we're going to talk a little bit about what these numbers mean. People were asking, so I'm going to try to explain it. If you can see, each of these horizontal divisions is 1 millisecond per division. Okay, so that's 1/1000th of a second, meaning it takes 1,000 of those lines to make up 1 second. Okay, the vertical lines is voltage. Channel 1 is the load cell that the firing pin interacts with when the trigger is released. This voltage is a high-speed sensor that's accurate to within 0.2 of an inch, or 0.2 of a thousandth, sorry. Once it releases off the back of the firing pin, it activates and then gives us a time. So this particular system we're testing, that's 1 millisecond, 2 milliseconds, about 2 3/4 milliseconds from where the firing pin starts to fall to where it contacts the back of the primer. That is what we call lock time. Now, this yellow line is telling us a lot also. So this is the original impact. Each vertical volt on channel 1 is 10 pounds of force. So even though this has a, and force is really talked about in pounds PSI per foot, which is basically what this is saying. So you've got 10, 20, 30, 40. You've got 40 pounds of impact force. And then we look at how long does it take for the fire control system to stabilize. So you've got, in 1 millisecond, it's fairly stable. In 2, there's still some vibrations. Right about 3 milliseconds, it's back to normal. That's a very efficient ignition system. So now let's try that. Have a finger on the trigger there. This trigger's set awful soft. So that's a pretty efficient ignition system there. Now, what I was doing there is I'm going to simulate drag. How you can simulate drag is you can fire it with the bolt slightly open. Not there yet, hold on. Okay, so there, that was with the bolt slightly open. That's basically the cocking piece coming down and contacting the ramp, the cocking ramp of the bolt before it gets there. So it's obviously slowing it way down. That's not nothing you would have in normal firing situations. But that could simulate if your bolt is hitting your stock and it's not coming down all the way. Look at that. That gun will still fire, but look at 25% of the amount of force. Lock time is not much different, but look at, we don't have near the impact force. Watch. See that compared to that? So there's basically, and we can simulate this, if we had a action on here that had a cross pin that was dragging, like you see a lot in some of these actions, firing pin spring dragging on the ID of the bolt, things like that. So this is very minute differences, so everything's amplified. So when you're firing, this is just me closing the bolt and firing. You can see a lock time here, 2 milliseconds, right? And it's pretty consistent at 2 milliseconds. That's a very efficient ignition system. Look how much force. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. If you count 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5 if you count that. 50 pounds now, because I'm letting the bolt close all the way. And we're also looking at how long between here and there. I just changed that when I touch the screen to 2 milliseconds. Change that back. Look, I mean, this is extremely consistent ignition. So this is one of the USA FTR ones. They're all getting tested before they get sent out. If every action manufacturer did this, every action you get would basically be the same. But they don't do this. I don't know of any other action manufacturer that's doing this type of testing. Let me look at that. But that waveform, for all things considered, is very consistent. Simulate if your bolt was hitting your stock. Ooh, man, that's bad, right? So this system, let's see if I can take it off and show you here. This is the system we're using. So we've got a sensor on the back, on the firing pin releases, load cell, force transducer up front. Power supply, we're amplifying that voltage through a signal converter, and that's what we have. So that's a short explanation of how this system works and how we test for firing pin ignition energy.